Serious, women of Reddit, what casual things do men do that unintentionally make you feel unsafe? Messaging me on social media dating sites and telling me you've seen me at work or know where I work. Both myself and another co-worker have had this happen and it never fails to be creepy, especially when they go on in detail about how they've always found us extremely beautiful and such. I'm sure it's innocent and most of the time just a shy, awkward guy's way of trying to reach out, but just don't do this. When strange men comment on my appearance right off the bat, or when they ask intruding questions like do you live alone, this really happened. Slowing down in your car or pulling over while looking at me, or talking to me from your car, I assume you're going to kidnap me. This, I walked past one time and a guy rolled down his window and asked where I was going and if I needed a lift. Working nights in a bar area and getting asked things about my personal life, like do you live alone, are you here alone, oh, you're too pretty to be here this late at night, etc. Still makes my skin crawl, or the general catcalling. Male taxi or Uber drivers that drop me home at night, asking whether I live on my own, who I live with, are they home, do I have a boyfriend, etc. They could just be making conversation, but in the middle of the night I take no chances. I'm an Uber driver and heck nah, that's not casual conversation. When a guy puts his hand on my knee pit if I don't know him very well, I automatically think he will try to feel me up. This is based on an unfortunate incident I had during a very long plane ride and the passenger I was seated next to and some weird situations I have had at crowded bars. I honestly can't imagine touching the knee of any woman I'm not romantically involved with, no matter how well I know them. Jesus Christ, I came here to make sure I wasn't ever being unintentionally creepy, but absolutely none of this stuff sounds casual to me at all. The thing that makes it casual is that it happens to us all the time, I think. Yeah, a lot of this sounds and feels creepy as heck, but me, I'm going through these top comments and going yep, that happens to me all the time, yep, this one too, and so on. Lightly honking their horn at me when I'm walking, riding a bicycle, or driving my scooter. I automatically assume it's because they're warning me of something dangerous, but really they're just like, oh, you're a woman out in public, let me make it known that I'm looking at you. Male customers that add you on social media. The place that I used to work at required your name tag to have your first and last name. After getting a couple of friend request and messages with invitations to hang out, I went to my manager with this problem. He was extremely understanding and got all new name tags that only had our first name on it. Most of the friend requests were coming from sad dudes that were 20 years older than me. One of them literally went on a 30-minute rant at us about how women suck. We all got friend request from him that evening. Insisting on walking me home after a first date. Yeah, I get that you want to be a gentleman and you think there might be a chance we go inside for some fun. But from my perspective, a dude I barely know is trying to follow me home after I told him I didn't want him to. I had a guy do this and then straight up wouldn't leave my apartment all night. I had to lock myself in my room with my cat. Getting instantly angry when I don't want to do something or don't agree with them on something. I don't necessarily mean like a yelling, threatening type of angry, because that would be obvious, but suddenly changing from normal to staring me down into my soul, tensing up, gritting teeth and using an annoyed but also stern and angry tone in a second. Even if it's over something small, it makes me think you're pretending to be normal and if we were left alone together you'd switch up and turn out to be a psychopath. Yes, had this happen with a man I barely knew. He was driving a car with me in it. Feeling like you can't escape if they lose it made it that much more scary. Walk behind me at night or in remote quiet places. It's not something I can suggest a fix for. One bad experience has made me very conscious of being followed. I read an essay by a large black man who lived in Brooklyn, talking about racial stereotyping. He said if he found himself walking behind a woman, especially at night, he would whistle classical music. That usually communicated that he wasn't trying to be threatening. When customers tell me to smile more, why aren't you smiling for me? It makes my resting B face turn into just a B face. Simi. This is so annoying and I've started to get so irritated by it that I ask them if they've ever asked that to a man before. Mostly the staring. If I don't notice, I can still feel the eyes on me. It makes my skin crawl and gets me uneasy. If I'm touched anywhere lower than my shoulders, I will immediately try and leave. I'm not a touchy person with strangers. Almost always happens when I go get gas and there's a guy outside the store or near the gas pump and tries to ask me a question. Usually something personal. I'll mumble an answer and try to appear not interested in having a conversation, and they'll continue to stare at me or ask more personal questions. The worst is when they're starting their conversation off with "you look good" or something along those lines, which comes off creepy. Like, "I'm 20, you're 50, I'm gay, please leave me alone." Touching my hair. I think they do it as a form of flirting, but it's uncomfortable, creepy, and it makes me feel totally unsafe. Getting in my space during a casual conversation or straight up touching me. Like, some people are touchy and just put their hand on my shoulder or arm when laughing whenever. Especially older customers. Like, I'll say "don't touch me" and men always go "I'm sorry, it's a habit." Then we'll try to keep doing it. My old dentist did this when he came to check my teeth after a cleaning. Ended up calling the office after I left and told them exactly how it made me feel and that I wouldn't be coming back because of it. When men twice my size stare at me as I go past. Now, I don't mean just casually look. I mean full on staring into my soul for a solid 5 minutes. Now, it would be understandable if I wore skimpy clothing, but every day I wear jeans and a hoodie with the face of a 12-year-old. Might get some flack for this, but for me the worst is just groups of drunk young men. They could be sweet, friendly guys just having a good time hanging out, but my first thought is always terror. Putting a hand on my lower back as you walk by me lets me know right away you aren't going to respect my personal space and immediately raises several red flags. Unsolicited neck massages. I absolutely hate this. It can be played off as casual and yet it is so creepy. I don't know how to respond when it happens and generally feel it is super inappropriate. Guys who ask "can I get a hug?" and you know they really mean "I'm going to hug you and I don't care if your answer is number," making you feel like you have no choice but to let them touch you. I once had a guy start calling my job, asking my co-workers for my name and schedule. It went on 4 weeks and I was petrified to the point of carrying a knife when I left work late at night. Some dipshit co-worker ended up giving him my full name and he started hitting me up in Facebook. I, of course, blocked his butt. Then one day he called while I was at work asking for me. I'd had enough and said, "That's me. What do you want?" He started going on about how he thought I was pretty and wanted to take me on a date and that his brother was my neighbor. Blah blah blah. I told him he had put me through heck, making me live in fear for a week. That he better leave me alone or I would kill him with my bare hands. I never saw or heard from him again. Seriously, if your brother is my neighbor, just say hello if you see me in the yard. Don't go stalker on me. I'm a man, but dang, I hate walking behind a woman, especially at night. I'm sure they feel unsafe, but there is no way to avoid it. I have the same way and I feel like if I start talking they feel even more unsafe, but actually I just want them to feel safe and maybe even go together so she doesn't have to be scared. I really hate it. Especially because I always go with my friends to their home because I don't want them to go alone at night. I had a co-worker give me a birthday hug and when I felt like the hug was over, I tried to pull away and he just laughed and said, "You can't get away, even if you tried," and proceeded to hug me tighter. Blocking the only exit, leaning and always is comfortable, and they might feel they are being cute and cheeky by refusing to let me out when I want to leave, but that is some creepy crap. Being playfully grabbed and pulled back. I made it clear I had had enough and wasn't interested. Happened with a stranger I was dancing with on a night out. He then said I owe him because he had bought me a drink, which he also physically pulled me to the bar. When they try and touch my baby and I don't even know them. But this goes for strange women too. Don't touch my children. It's that simple. Calling me anything other than my name if I've just met you. What I mean by that is, if I've only just introduced myself and we're talking, and you call me things like honey, love, babe, etc., you're being way too familiar with me. Just call me by my name. When guys get oddly protective or overly gentlemanly after just meeting. A first date doesn't mean I need or want a guy to drive me home, put his coat over my shoulders or ask me to text him when I get home. It's all too much and makes me uncomfortable at best. Some guys think it's cool to ask to have my phone and try to grab it so they can put their number in. I guess it is kinda cool in the way that he's a confident daddy who's taking charge, but like, that's my phone, dog. Don't be snatching my phone. It's just like, if I haven't yet established a level of physical comfort with you, why would I if you don't even have my number yet? Then why are you grabbing or even asking to have access to something seriously important and intimate to me? That's my job, my family, my bank, my nudes. So it just sort of feels like he doesn't respect boundaries or thinks he can set boundaries for me. If I'm alone in a store and happen to see a man in the same aisle as me a few times, or if I catch him looking at me, I get uncomfortable and feel unsafe. There's always the thought of, am I being followed? Is he going to follow me to my car and try to kidnap or attack me? Any situation where I am alone and a man takes the time to talk to me or isolate me from other people around us, I feel a sense of panic. Actual creeps frick things up for everyone. Not blaming you, but this is an unfair judgment of most guys just trying to shop, as well as being an unfair way for you to have to feel. It's a lose-lose and I don't know what we can really do about it. One of my tires exploded while driving, so I had to pull over while waiting for my husband to come with another car for me to get to work. A guy pulled over and offered to help, but I thanked him and said I was already waiting for someone. This guy's lost his crap and started telling at me about how he didn't have bad intentions, etc. Yeah dude, screaming at me make me feel safe around you. A list in order of things from least obvious easiest for men to do without thinking, to most obvious. Compliments or suggestive comments in the form of jokes. Examples that have all happened at the workplace, which is male dominated for me. 1. The only 3 women in a large meeting were chatting together with one man, Matt, included. Another man comes up and says, "Oh, Matt, you're keeping all the women to yourself too. I was working particularly late, and one of the men on my floor walked by office, saw me in it, and comes in to say, 'Oh, what are you still doing here? You shouldn't be here so late, and especially it is just you with us 3 guys. That's not good,' and then laughs and leaves, and I hear him say to other men nearby, 'Guys, we are not alone. Let it be noted that I actually like this co-worker, and until then, he's never made me uncomfortable.' 3. Well, in a field like this yours, I'm sure every guy appreciates having someone like you on the team, which can be followed up with, 'Yeah, I'm sure they're all about celebrating gender diversity now.' Subtly possessive physical touch. A guy put his hand on my hip and his finger hooked into my belt loop, which made it so I couldn't back away, as I was denying his attempts to kiss me. Hand on the back of my neck instead of on my shoulder. Rowdy groups of guys shouting, laughing, usually a little drunk. It always makes me wary, but what really puts me on edge is if there are some members of the group who seem to have shifty eyes or keep looking around even though there is clearly plenty to focus on right in front of them, with their own friends being obnoxious. Small talk with questions inquiring what I do for work, where I work, whereabouts I live, how long I've been somewhere, how long I'll stay somewhere, and how many people do I know in the area. Obviously also asking if I have a boyfriend, etc. Hitting objects, banging fist on the table, etc. to express frustration or overexcitement. Stare, keep glancing at me. Subtly possessive physical touch. A guy put his hand on my hip and his finger hooked into my belt loop, which made it so I couldn't back away, as I was denying his attempts to kiss me. Hand on the back of my neck instead of on my shoulder. I wouldn't rate this as either casual or subtle. Insisting to buy a drink. Wanna get me too drunk or drug me, or just too enthusiastic? I'll never know. Buy nuggets. They're safe and everybody likes to eat. Not really the point of this thread, but I learned that as a guy, a way to make a girl feel more safe if you're walking with them is to place yourself between them and strangers' traffic. I've done this with friends and they have actually called me out and said it's so nice and thoughtful and gotten comments like "you are great boyfriend material." Do this with my girlfriend and she shoves me back to the other side. BC, I'm blocking her son, LOL. Don't touch me. I've had strangers touch my lower back or want a hug, even kiss my hand. Unless it's a handshake, don't freaking touch me. Any sort of stalking, on social media accounts, having multiple names, aliases, or in real life, constant harassing or be asked out. Apparently stalking is casual now. Insisting he walk me home or take the subway with me. I live in NYC, after a date, and I repeatedly say no and they continue to insist. If a girl says no like 2 times, back off. It's not that she doesn't like you, she doesn't know you enough. I dunno. There's a guy who has now given me 2 really disturbing hugs. Like he intentionally smushes my boobs hard. He does this in front of my partner and his. I'm literally avoiding social situations where I know he will be lurking, looming, touching any part of me. I have super long hair, but not for creepers to touch. Basically invading private space. I may be the size of a child, but I am a fully grown adult. No touchy. Catcalling. Freaks me out, no matter what. Ask too many personal questions too soon into meeting. Ask for my number. Don't ask, just give. Stare. Don't stare directly at me, around me, sure. At me? PLZ stop. Walk nearby at night or just stand around. Can be suspicious, but I realize I may be paranoid. Get off at same bus stop as me after failing to properly engage me over a period of months where I have shown no interest in you. Especially after you've been suspiciously checking your phone prior to this and have never gotten off there before. Ask me where I live. Body blocking, especially when in a difference in opinion. I've had a few male friends who have loomed over me or essentially positioned themselves between myself and a doorway, so that I couldn't leave a conversation in which we were disagreeing. It can be as innocent as me wanting to help bring some dishes to the kitchen as a guest and them insisting I don't need to by blocking my path. It can feel very threatening and unsafe, even if I know it is unintentional. In the worst case of this, I was crashing at a very platonic friend's house after not being in a state to drive after his party. He was trying to be a gentleman and didn't want me to have to sleep on the couch, and was trying to get me to sleep in his bed and he would take the couch. That didn't make me feel comfortable, so I wasn't having any of it, but he kept sidestepping in the hallway to prevent me from getting to the living room. Even grabbed my wrists when I tried to dart past him. Now, I really truly was 100% confident that I didn't actually have anything to fear from him. If I went in his bedroom, I knew that he would in fact sleep on the couch, but it was so not okay for him to trap me in that dang hallway. He basically gave me the choice of either conceding or starting to punch kick him to try to get past him. If he was a stranger, I'd have no problem choosing the latter, but this is a good friend and now I'm going to seem like the hugely overreacting one if I escalate. He's just being a gentleman after all. So I finally gave in and chose the former. He really did sleep on the couch and left me alone. And I don't hang out with him anymore, nor would I go to one of his parties. Because he made me feel extremely unsafe and that's not okay. Something these gentlemen don't seem to get is that you shouldn't force your chivalry on someone against their will. The truly gentlemanly thing to do is allow others to accept or reject your gestures. Standing right behind me, over my shoulder, even if they are doing so because there's not enough room on the train or it's a more comfortable angle to look at a co-worker's screen. It's worse when the guy is a surprisingly quiet walker and rather big, and not looking down to see you. Still sorry, Jess. In my defense, Jess is really short, and she kept ending up in places I couldn't see her while doing whatever I was doing. Seeing her seem to squirt out of places right in front of me was a weekly occurrence, and it was as startling for me as it was for her. Getting into my personal space or touching unnecessarily, especially when I've already pulled away. I probably have a smaller personal space bubble than the average person, but nothing makes me more uncomfortable than getting cornered in by some dude. Ugh. I had a co-worker who came up to me and ran his fingers up and down my arm because he wanted to feel the texture of my sweater. Butthole. Offer to walk me home after a first date. I don't particularly want you to know where I live, and I feel like you're trying to get me alone. More egregious. I had a guy tell me you're too pretty to be walking alone at night. So, I'm so pretty I'll attract rapists? If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.